Coach, obviously, another 17 runs, 9 or more runs, and now 8 of the last 9. The offense, you mentioned how the lineup doesn't need to change. Clearly, it's proving that it doesn't really need to at this point. What are the thoughts going right now after offense, especially that 6th inning? Once again, just seems to be clicking on all cylinders.
We needed it. We needed the offense tonight because the other facets of the game weren't very sharp in my mind. So we needed the guys to swing the sticks tonight and pick us up a little bit. Just from a standpoint, we didn't set the tone very well with Markle or Omla. Didn't set the tone real well on the mound, in my opinion. We were able to get some decent innings out of Fitzy and Gibby there to finish it out, but. Early on we kicked it around defensively. We didn't base run very well. There were some plays that we should have made, I thought, and just continued to fall behind in the count way too much. And we're too late in the season for that. We got to be better than that if we're gonna do what we want to do here. So those are 2 seniors that have to be a little bit better than that, and we'll talk about it and get them better. I'm confident they'll be better the next outing, but. Given that, the offense needed to swing the sticks tonight when they did, so they came through.
You mentioned last night how it was a unique plan to have Markle and Omla in a unique situation with him only going 1 or 2 innings because you want to have him ready by Tuesday. What necessarily, do you feel like it was maybe off rhythm? Do you feel like it wasn't necessarily prepared? What do you necessarily think was necessarily going through Markle, and what did you necessarily hear from him and his perspective afterward?
I'm not sure. We tried to put him on the same routine that he's normally on. And that's why we wanted him to start. Omla's, has come out of the bullpen plenty most of the year, really. So that shouldn't be anything new for either of those guys. So I'm not gonna chalk it up and give them an excuse to lean on. That's something that they got to be better than that.
When evaluating that 6th inning, what kind of approach did you see from your hitters? Was it just more of a patient approach that they had 4 straight walks, or what was special about that inning that really generated that rally? Just
passing the torch one guy to the next, guys not trying to do too much, and just continue to put together solid at-bats, one after another, and again, not try to be the hero, just pass the torch to the next guy, do your job, and give it to the next one. So when they do that and get the line moving, it's fun to watch them.
Is that something that you've tried to preach throughout the year and maybe hasn't necessarily come to fruition, or has it? Like, what has been kind of that sentiment or mentality that you've been trying to tell these guys, and has that come through at this point?
Well, that's what we've been talking about all year, on doing that type of stuff. And some baseball is a sport to where you just can't talk it into existence. You have to go out and put it into action, and you're not going to do it every night. It's not going to be perfect every night, but as a whole, that's what we've tried to preach to these guys, is just solid at bats. Do what you do and pass it to the next guy. And when we get in trouble, it's when we try to do too much for the most part. So as of late, obviously, it's been working out just fine.
8 out of 9 starters with at least a base hit. How good does it feel knowing that in the bottom of the lineup you can count on those guys to deliver when they're up to the plate?
It's been big, and you can't just always rely on the same 2 or 3 guys every night. So when we have that lineup that's stretched out 1 through 9, and guys that can do damage and put together good at bats, that rolls it over with it's nice when Campy comes up with guys on base, versus the base is empty every time. So. Very, very good offense when you have guys at the bottom that are able to be on base for the guys at the top, and vice versa. So, Steven Ondina, big bunt there in the 8th to get a rally going, to put up a couple insurance runs when that game's still, you don't feel real comfortable on a night like tonight, even with a 4 or 5 run lead. So, just starting off the 9th inning there with a nice drag bunt, getting on base, those little things are going to pay dividends hopefully down the stretch here.
What are the improvements that you've seen from Fitzpatrick and Gibson specifically in the pen? Obviously, both of them coming in, like you said, and maybe closer than what you wanted to be situations, but both coming through with your offense being able to take advantage of insurance. What can you say about what the bullpen looked like tonight, and how you hope those 2 at least carry it going forward with the must-win games going forward?
Just coming in and stopping the bleeding for the most part, and then keeping the score somewhat at bay, and letting our offense go to work. Working fast and getting off the field defensively is big, and you do that by throwing a lot of strikes, working ahead, smart with your pitches and efficient with your pitches, and I think those those two guys as of late have been doing a really good job of that. So, you know, again, those two guys coming in and those middle innings and just giving us a chance to get off the field and get our offense back to work and try to put together a rally is, you know, it's big. The more frequently we can do that and not spend a long time on defense and get back and go to work on offense is usually beneficial.
What can you say is the outlook for tomorrow? Obviously, you said it was going to depend on what happened today. Only 4 arms going today. What is the outlook right now, at least for tomorrow?
You know, had to get through today first. Today was a little bit grueling and said a little bit sloppier than I wanted it to be. But end of the day, we only used 4 arms. I say only. We used 4 arms today that are you know, arms that we need. So we'll look at who we got tomorrow available. You know, we didn't use Schieffer, we didn't use Halvey or Carlone or, you know, those type of guys. So we'll see what who the best matchup is to start with tomorrow and go from there.
Will it be mostly a bullpen game, you feel like? Will it be just 1-2 innings, just pass off to the next guy, or do you want someone to possibly go long term?
We'll play it however we got to play it to try and win. So, you know, I think it's, given who we have available, I don't think any of those guys are, I'd be surprised if anybody went 6 innings, you know, out of there, but we're going to use whoever we got to do to get us a win tomorrow, or put us in the best position to win tomorrow.
And then what about the seniors tomorrow? Obviously, senior day, parents are going to be on the field, very emotional. What is the approach you want to take with senior day and the approach you've taken in the past? Obviously, it's still a must-win game, and obviously every single one is at this point, but what emotionally do you want to at least set the tone for it tomorrow, and this being just the regular season finale, the last regular season game, and the Pac-12 era of ASU?
You know, I ideally don't want them to be any different than how they've been. You know, just coming ready to play and play with energy and enthusiasm, and hopefully on senior day that's they show up ready to go tomorrow. And whether or not we try to get those guys in, I think it's first and foremost we got to try to win tomorrow. But I imagine it'll be an emotional day for a lot of those guys. It'll be a little emotional for me too. You know, for the effort that those guys have put in, and you know, I know some of them will probably get an opportunity to move on and continue playing, and some won't. And you know, and when things come to an end, it's you know, that's kind of a emotional time, you know, for those guys, and obviously for me as well. So you know, but to a man, every senior that we have has put in tremendous effort, and you know, I put my stamp of approval on every single one of those guys tomorrow, on my reputation, on their work ethic, and what type of teammate they are.
It was announced before that you guys are trying to get Burns ready for the Pac-12 tournament. Any updates on that front, good or bad, on his recovery?
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you asked that, because I know I've been, we've wanted to get him, you know, in these games, you know, against Stanford that weekend potentially, and then maybe this weekend potentially. Ball is coming out a lot better, and it's starting to get there, so I don't anticipate him throwing tomorrow, but we are going to do a heavy bullpen tomorrow and see where he's at, and really try to cut it loose and see where it goes from there. And if that goes well, then we were going to try to do live hitters one time before the tournament, just so we can see hitters, but we may not have that luxury. We might just throw him right in the fire. But if there's one kid that can handle that, it's Tommy. So assuming he feels good and no setbacks tomorrow, then I'm hoping he'll be available at least in some capacity next week.
For fans who maybe not have seen him in the last month and a half while he's been injured, how important is it for this rotation to have Burns, considering the amount of length and growth that he had, even for being a true freshman in that first month and a half? How big is he going to be if he comes back?
Well, I mean, he's not going to come back in the role that he was at the beginning of the year, where he was a starter that gave us 5-6 innings. If we play long enough, maybe he gets to that point, but you know, we'll take it one step at a time and try to build him up if we can. But you know, having that another starter is you guys see it, like when we have good starting pitching that gets us through 5 or 6, everything else falls into place, and we're able to manage it so much better. But when you have, you know, short starts, and then you tax your bullpen early and go into, you know, those arms too early, it kind of puts you at a disadvantage the rest of the weekend and those type of things. But so that's the importance of having that, you that big time weekend guy for you that gives you length. It sets everybody else up and puts them where they're supposed to be, and you don't have to overuse those guys. But yeah, I mean, I think when we're looking at, we'll take what we can get out of Tommy at this point. If we can get 1 or 2 innings out of him, or you know, during this conference tournament, we'd be happy. We'll just have to try to pick and choose when we need those innings.
Thank you, Coach.
Thanks, Coach.